6 o'clock. All righty, well, it's 6 o'clock. Thank you all for being here this evening. We'll go ahead and get this meeting started. Could please everyone stand, remain standing. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could ask Mr. Caldwell, would you lead us in invocation, please, sir?
Everything done will be in accordance with your will. We pray that it will be a good meeting, dear Lord, and that everything you wish to get accomplished will be accomplished. We pray that when it's over, everyone will return home safe and sound in your will. We pray this prayer to you in Jesus' holy and precious name.
And if you would, we just have a moment of silence for any of our neighbors that may have passed away recently. Thank you. Please be seated. If you would, check your cell phones at this time. I'll do the same. I know we all have some unique cell phone rings, but also at this time, if any commissioners have a conflict of interest, you can let that be known right now. Well, we'll move on down to the agenda. Next is the adoption of the agenda as it is written. I have a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Gentlemen. Next up is public comments. I believe we have one person signed up, Mr. Alan Watts. If you would please, sir, come on up.
My name is Alan Watts. I live on Tipton Circle here in town. And I lived on Star Hill Drive for 11 or 12 years. Moved over to Emerald Isle for a couple of years. Purchased this house 2.5 years ago. I'm in the Star Hill North section. I want to present a couple of facts. Thank you for giving me a couple of minutes. I want to present a couple of facts, and then I have one question. So, on September 25th at 3:30 in the morning, I was awakened by 2 small dogs barking. Not 5 minutes, not 15, it was an hour later, and they were still barking. I called the police department, I left a message, and I think I finally got another couple of hours of sleep, but Detective Hockman, thank you, sent me a text at 5:24. Just after I woke up, I read that, and he said, and I quote, "Located the dogs and warned the owners about the noise," end quote. I looked up in Cape Carteret, North Carolina Code of Ordinances, Title 9, under General Regulations. Allow me to read this quickly. The keeping of any animal or bird which by causing frequent or long continued noise shall disturb the discomfort or repose of any person in the vicinity is a violation. This is not the first time in that neighborhood. I think it was the officer that walked in a few moments ago. Came out one day when I called. There was a couple of houses down from me. I don't know the people, but they have a beagle. They tie him up in the backyard because their yard is not fenced in. And the beagle sometimes barks for 15 minutes at a time. Well, the officer talked with them that day, and another officer talked with me as well. They've done a lot better. I mean, I still hear him once in a while. He's a beagle. It's not the dog's fault in any of these homes. I understand that. But he barks a few times now, and they take him inside. There are a lot of irresponsible dog owners in that neighborhood. And down to my question, one more thing. My neighbor directly behind me, Dave, has a black lab. I've heard her bark once in 2.5 years, once. And I think I was throwing the ball for her to chase after. My question is, is there anything else that can be done other than bothering the police constantly? I mean, 3:30 in the morning, that's unacceptable. 9 o'clock at night, that's a little better, but I work 45 hours plus a week and I need my rest. So in the instance where there is ongoing barking, is the basic process to call the police and let them speak with the people. I mean, is there anything else that can be done? That's it.
Frank, can you answer?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, generally, we are trying to work with property owners and trying to secure voluntary compliance with the town's ordinances. I'm sure the police department spoke to the owner of the dog in that area. Hopefully that has helped. Hopefully it's gotten at least a little bit better. If it's a situation where it perpetually continues, then we would ramp it up to issue citations at that time. But we always take an approach initially where we try to just resolve the concern for everyone's sake. If it does continue to be a problem, feel free to call me or come by town hall and I'll be happy to help you, and we'll have to ratchet it up if need be.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. And that is it for the public comment. Next up is planning board report, Chair Hall. Mike, I assume you're reporting instead?
Yeah. For Susan, she couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, go right ahead, sir.
Okay, we had 2 or 3 items at our board meeting. The first one was for a recommendation on the CAMA comprehensive plan. We spent quite a bit of time. It's a pretty thick document, but you read through the whole thing and then start thinking about it. It's really helpful as a planning guide for the planning board and set direction for the town. It's very environmentally friendly. It strongly recommends we do something as we develop the inside of the triangle with sewer capacity in there. It encourages low density housing. And I think it's all of the things that we have done as a board up here in the past. So I felt like it was a good document to serve as a guide for us in the town, and we recommended that it be approved. The second item is we made some amendments, recommended some amendments to the UDO for the R10M district. Now, the R10M district was put in place many, many years ago when things were different. And what we tried to do is create opportunities for multifamily without encroaching in the existing established neighborhoods that have been that way for 50 years. And I think that we did that, and it protects those long-standing long-standing development, and establishes standards and guidelines that we need to go by going forward. And I'm not going to say any more on that because that is on your agenda, and the town manager has all the details on that. The final thing is this is work in process. It's not on your agenda tonight, but we worked on these special use permits. As you will recall, when we got our new UDO, the table of permitted uses was very well populated with the SUPs, which we'd never had before. We used conditional uses in the past to address special condition. And when I first looked at this, I thought, well, this is a good idea. But the more we got into it, it looked like SUPs opened the door to all kinds of frivolous things that could happen, and they are very involved, and there's very strict procedures you have to follow to approve them. So what we went through is this table of permitted use, and with the help of the town manager, and we vastly recommended to eliminate a lot of them. And where we're eliminating, we're making sure that there's standards in place and conditions that will be used to make it a permitted by right use, which is what we've had for the last 50, 60 years. And I'm going to leave the rest of that to the town manager. That's all I have to report. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. All right, next up is the consent agenda. The motion to accept.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Next up, I think we have 3 public hearings in a row coming up, right?
Yes, sir.
We'll need to, we'll just start with the first one and go on. So please correct me if I stumble on these. Okay. So first up is a resolution authorizing lease extension with the Girl Scouts they've already got 1 year lease, correct? But we're doing a multi-year. And so we have to do a public hearing and a consideration for this resolution. So if we would, I guess, first off, we'll need to have a motion to go into public hearing to leave the.
Okay, motion.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, we're now in a public hearing. Anybody send anything in, mail, email? Okay, anybody here would like to speak about it? All right, with no public comment, I will entertain a motion to come out of public hearing and back into regular session.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Frank, you want to
Be happy
highlight
to.
anything about?
Yeah, just briefly for the audience's benefit, the lease terms that are included in your packet are identical to the terms that you all approved at your meeting in September. As we discussed in September, that's a 1-year lease that could be accomplished without having a public hearing. And the Girl Scouts had hoped to and have now moved into the facility prior to this meeting tonight. So they moved in on October the 3rd. So initially we considered a 1-year lease agreement at the September meeting. The statutes require a public hearing for any term longer than 1 year. So the Girl Scouts have requested a total of 3 years, hence the public hearing tonight. All of the terms are the same. It is $2,000 per month lease payment. The town would cover the utility costs associated with that unit. Like I said, they moved in on October 3rd. We are pleased to have them as a tenant in the town building. If the board is so inclined, I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the lease extension for 2 years through September 30th of 2025.
Any questions? All right, I have a motion.
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Next up is a resolution adopting the CAMA and comprehensive plan. So we'll also need to do a public hearing for that. So I'll entertain a motion to go into the public meeting, public hearing.
Make a motion to move to the
Second.
public meeting.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. All right, do we have any correspondence, Heather, regarding the CAMA comprehensive plan? Anyone here would like to speak? All righty, being no public comments, then we shall entertain a motion to come out of the public hearing and back into the regular
That
session.
motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. All right, Frank, you want to give us a summary of that as well?
Yeah, be happy to, Mayor Baker, Commissioners. So as you all know, the plan was preliminarily adopted by the board back in March after a thorough, comprehensive public input process over the last year plus leading up to that. After the plan was adopted in March of this year, it was circulated among various federal and state agencies. Those agencies completed their review earlier this summer, and you have a copy of a couple of letters in your packet tonight that outline the concerns that were received from those agencies. The vast majority of those requested clarifications are minor in nature and mostly just clarifying different background pieces of information included in the plan. Perhaps the most significant comments that we received from the federal and state agencies were from the United States Forest Service. They own a couple of parcels along Highway 58 as you approach Taylor Notion Road. I included a summary in the written memo of their comments, but essentially they were concerned that the town center concept indicated that those parcels might be developed in the future with some new private development. Their other big concern was that the bicycle path, one of the options for the bicycle path, there was a map included in the plan that showed that bike path cutting across the southern parcel that is owned by the Forest Service. They were adamant that those parcels not be considered for future development, whether it be public or private. We have made those changes in the version of the plan that you have before you tonight. That's probably really only the substantive concern that came from the federal and state agencies. Again, most everything else is simply clarifying some of the background information included in the plan. I did want to let the board know that there are a few other changes that I think are relatively significant included in the plan, in the updated plan that you have before you tonight. As you know, the town center concept was included in the version of the plan that was adopted back in March. That concept is still a centerpiece of this plan going forward. However, I've made some changes to the graphic illustration of that concept in the version that's presented for your consideration tonight. Rather than showing specific road alignments and specific parcels affected by the town center concept, those specific references have been eliminated, and the concept is still included, still incorporated as a key goal for the town going forward, but without that specificity. And because it's imperative that we secure cooperation and partnership with the affected property owners in the town center area, I think it's wise for the town to consider the version that you have tonight. That again, just gives us more flexibility going forward and hopefully allows us to build a good partnership with the affected landowners in that area. So that's probably the most significant change that's included in the version of the plan that you have tonight. A few other minor changes. One of the things the planning board talked about, and you'll hear a little bit more about later on the agenda, is just the idea of allowing some medium density development along the main corridors on Taylor and Ocean Road and 24 and 58. That map's been updated as well, and I included the page references in the written memo. Other than that, all of the substantive policies that you all considered back in March are included in the plan, and there are a variety, I think, of very appropriate policies for the town, ranging from maintaining the low density nature of the community, promoting quality development, environmental protection, the town center concept, the bicycle trail, stormwater management is a key focus for the town going forward. All of those policies remain included in this version of the plan presented for your consideration tonight. The reason that this is coming back to you tonight is that the process that is outlined by the Division of Coastal Management requires us to go through another public hearing, also required another review by the planning board. As Member King mentioned earlier, planning board did review the plan at their last meeting on September 27th. If the board approves the plan tonight, it will be nearly final. The Division of Coastal Management will go through a process where they'll advertise the plan for additional public comments. We would expect that it would be certified prior to the end of the calendar year and be official and in place. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the plan, and look forward to moving forward and achieving some of the goals and objectives outlined in the plan.
Questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I voted against this last time. I think the vote was 3-2 on the board. I stand firm in my no vote on the land use plan tonight. I just don't think we're there with the Main Street concept. It's too many ifs and ands and buts, and I don't think that even though we're closer, I think, with working with the adjoining landowners than we were before, thanks to Frank. I just don't think we're there. There's just too many questions for me to support this at the present time. My biggest fear is a tax increase burden placed on the backs of the citizens to accomplish this. Another fear is, and I hate to say this, but our town is notorious for starting something and not finishing. The trail issue, we have our parks that we bought. They're not up to standard where they need to be. And I've discussed this with Frank. I have no doubt they will be finished, but I don't like the concept of entering into a Main Street concept and not knowing what the end result's going to be, and if there's going to be a burden placed on the taxpayer for sewer or anything. I'm totally against it right now. But that said, I do like the concept. If the property owners reach an agreement with road placements and whatnot with the town, and we can obtain grants or whatnot, but I will do everything that I can to support it. But at this time, I can't.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think, I voted for it when we voted for it in March, and I think I stand with still saying, yes, I think this gives us a way forward. It gives us a vision. I don't think it all has to be worked out right now. I don't think anyone has really said anything about tax increase. And I don't even know that that's something that's a part of it, but I do think that it gives us good guidance on where to go. I like the fact that we're working with the landowners to kind of create a mutually agreed solution. So I think I'm still in favor of this for what it is. And a lot of the citizens spoke during that process in favor of this, and I'm going to go with what I believe the citizens said. So I support this.
Any comments? All right, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this as stated in the memo.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? All right, motion carries 3-2. All right, we have one more public hearing to go through. This is for the ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance to adjust development standards in the R10M zoning district. So I'm going to motion to go to public hearing.
Make that motion.
Second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, we are now in public hearing. Heather, did we get any response regarding that? Okay, anybody here would like to speak? Sure.
A little bit, because I read just this morning.
Hold on. Yes.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Ginger Gold, 136 Pine Lake Road. And so when I looked at everything, I guess I just like scratched my head and it's like, why? Why are we even going through this? I think it's a incredible town to live in, and been here 15 years. And the reason I think it's so incredible is because it's unique and secure. There's not too many towns where it's primarily a single family housing. And you could say, well, yeah, but that's why we should do more and, build townhouses, build other kinds of structures. But when you get down to it, it still comes back to the question of why. And, it seems like we were here back in June, visiting this, same thing. It's a little different twist now because we're talking about zoning, okay? But we're still talking about the same structure there on 58, or the same land on Taylor Notion, I'm sorry, to build townhouses. And you just, as commissioners, you really, it's, I'm sure, incredibly tough, but to tease away just the wishes of a few compared to the masses. And I think we're still here, like we were back in June. There's just not a sign up in front of the property that says we're going to build 22 townhomes, which brought everybody and their brother here, okay? And of real concern too is not just the issue of townhomes, but it's the details in this amendment, which goes from 5 acres, you have to have a parcel 5 acres, down to 2 acres. I live next door to like 1.5 acres, so we're getting close, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to express that this isn't a have to, okay? And if this is what the town wants, the commissioners believe is the best thing for the town, so be it. But that's all.
Thank you. All righty, with no others, we shall entertain a motion to go out of public hearing and back into the regular meeting.
Make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. And would you like to elaborate on the subject?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Baker. So tonight you have before you an ordinance amendment that would amend the development standards in the R10M zoning district. And just to familiarize everybody briefly, the yellow, the blue, the green, the purple are all single-family residential zoning districts in the town. We only allow single-family homes in those districts. The red color that you see there are zoned commercial. Really hard to see it on this map, but there's a parcel right here. It's about 12 acres near the corner of Taylored Ocean Road and Highway 24. And there's another parcel at the end of Live Oak Drive. Those are and that's about 4.5 acres. Those are the only parcels in town that are currently zoned R10M. So it's important for folks to understand that the ordinance amendment that is under consideration tonight would only apply to those 2 parcels at this time. It could potentially apply to any other parcels that might be rezoned in the future to R10M. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we get a little bit further along. So I just want to make sure that it's clear for everybody that the action that the board is considering tonight is amending the standards in that R10M zoning district. That's the only district in our town that allows multifamily housing. And it includes many different standards, which I'll go through briefly and I'll highlight for you what those changes are. But I want to make that part clear from the beginning. So the ordinance that you have before you tonight is the product of, I think, thoughtful discussion by the planning board over the last few months, and ultimately was initiated by the townhouse proposals that you all considered prior to my arrival here in late June. The ordinance is presented tonight really for 2 reasons. One, it's because there is a very clear policy in the land use plan that was just adopted that articulates a desire for alternative housing options in the future, both for younger folks and also for older folks who may want different housing options in the community. And right now, we don't allow them anywhere in the town except for the 2 parcels that I mentioned and pointed out on the map earlier. So part of the reason this is coming forward is because of that desire in the community for alternative housing types. And part of it is because of the townhouse requests that came earlier this year. And the planning board, I think to its credit, engaged in very thoughtful discussion, listened to the concerns that came from community members who attended those meetings over the last few months and came up with the mechanism before you tonight. So I think the speaker mentioned that the current ordinance only allows this type of development on a parcel that's 5 acres in size. And the proposal that you have before you tonight would reduce that threshold to 2 acres and would theoretically make more parcels eligible for the rezoning to the R10M. As I mentioned earlier, the 2 parcels that are currently zoned R10M, one is about 12 acres. That's a permitted use by right now. The other one's about 4.5 acres. That's possibly debatable, but it couldn't even benefit from this because it's not 5 acres. So the ordinance that you have before you tonight would reduce that threshold from 5 acres to 2 acres. And practically what that means is that map's a little bit hard to see, so I apologize for that. But all the parcels that are outlined in green are the parcels that are larger than 2 acres in the town. And I think what strikes me about this map is there's not very many of them. And you'll notice that these are vacant parcels that are greater than 2 acres, not very many of them. When you get into the typical single family residential neighborhoods, you really don't see hardly anything where this might apply. So by reducing that standard from 5 acres to 2 acres, it would make the rezoning of these parcels possible. Now, it's just possible. There would still need to be a very inclusive public process involved in rezoning any of those parcels. It would go through the planning board, through public notice, public hearings, signs, all of those kind of things. And then it would ultimately come to the Board of Commissioners, and you all would make the final decision on those things. That's not what we're doing tonight. I show this map really just for context for everybody to better understand the ramifications of the change that you all are considering tonight. So that's probably the most significant change that's proposed, is a 2 acre parcel could qualify for this. The same density would remain in place. We currently allow up to 5.5 units per acre in our R10M zone. So that would, according to the ordinance presented to you tonight, that would not change. So for example, let me finish. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. A 2 acre parcel, for example, could only have a maximum of 11 units. A 3 acre parcel could have 16.5, and you can do the math accordingly with that. So that 5.5 units per acre standard would remain unchanged. The setbacks would remain unchanged. We have a 40-foot setback in the R10M zone in the front, and we have a 30-foot side and rear setback in the R10M zone. Those would not change. The other things that would change, and this was one of the, I think, the key discussion points for the planning board, is that they really want to minimize the impacts on existing residential neighborhoods, the existing single family neighborhoods. Want them to feel more like a single family type neighborhood, but provide the flexibility for the different housing types. So one of the requirements that's included in this ordinance amendment for your consideration is a requirement that the parking for each of these individual units be associated with that individual unit. So there would not be a common parking lot that you might see in a typical townhouse development. You would have a minimum of 2 spaces per unit that would be associated with that unit. It might be in a garage, it might be in a front driveway associated with that individual unit, it might be in a rear driveway associated with that unit. So that was, I think, one of the key design features that the planning board talked about. There's also a requirement that if there are any multifamily structures, that you could only have up to 4 units per building. So you couldn't have 6 in a row or 7 in a row, only 4. And each individual unit would need to be a minimum of 22 feet wide, which I think is a pretty reasonable standard for you to consider tonight. There's also a provision in here for a 40-foot setback between buildings. So let's say, for example, you had a 2 acre parcel, and let's say that the developer was going to put 9 units on it. They could only have up to 4 units per building. And then the next building would have to be at least 40 feet away from the first building and so forth. So maybe in that case, they would wind up with 3 3-unit buildings, and it's purely hypothetical, but just to give you a sense so that there's some separation between those buildings. And I think the intent of the planning board in discussing this was to make sure that, again, we're managing the bulk. We're kind of keeping these things relatively small, trying to make sure they fit in with existing single family neighborhoods in the community. One of the things that is already in our ordinance for R10M is a prohibition on stacked units. So our ordinance currently says that you can't have an apartment or a condominium on top of another condominium. And so practically speaking, that only allows townhomes that are side by side and that share a common wall. So that's a key consideration, I think, for the board to think about as you deliberate over this ordinance amendment tonight. That's the basic crux of it. The other thing that is significant is that in our UDO, we have some pretty complicated buffer requirements, and they get very detailed and talk about how many rows, how high, how opaque they are, what they're going to look like when they grow up. This ordinance includes, I think, a simplified approach that requires a 20-foot landscape buffer around any multifamily developments in the R10M zone. And so that is, I think, in some ways comparable to what we have in the UDO currently. I think it also streamlines the ordinances, makes them simpler to understand, easier to implement. That buffer can be achieved through a combination or one or the other of existing native vegetation. Maybe there are several trees that might be saved along the buffer line. Maybe it's a mixture of saving existing trees and planting new landscape bushes or trees and so forth. So I think it gives everybody, I think, a little more flexibility and ultimately promotes an attractive development. Those are the main changes that are included. I want to take you back to this map, and I'll see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Get rid of the virus protection ad here. Let's see. So all of these parcels that are highlighted in green, as I mentioned, they're the vacant parcels larger than 2 acres. And so the planning board actually reviewed every single one of these parcels and said, okay, which of these parcels might be appropriate for rezoning to the R10M if we make these changes in the standards. And they literally went through every single parcel. I think there's 22 or 23, if I'm not mistaken. You have the parcel right here where the cursor is, that's already zoned R10M. So if you make the change tonight, Heather, is there a way to silence that? For anyone who is viewing the meeting remotely, if we could just ask you to mute yourself, please. We can hear a lot of background noise. Okay, I apologize for that. What I was saying is that this parcel here, the 12-acre parcel near Taylor Notion Road in 24, already zoned R10M. Clearly, the planning board said that that parcel is appropriate for the R10M zoning. The parcel down at the end of Live Oak on BOC Sound, they indicated that is also appropriate for the R10M zoning. And so if you approve these amendments tonight, they would apply to those 2 parcels tomorrow. And that would be a permitted use by right, as long as they could meet the standards that are outlined here. Those projects would theoretically be approved going forward. They went through all of the other parcels here, and they identified 2 other parcels that they thought were potentially suitable for rezoning to the R10M district. One is a 2.9 acre parcel on Highway 58 as you're leaving town, headed toward Pettiford Creek. The other is the 2.3 acre parcel that's located on Taylor Notion Road. That was the subject of the special use permit request earlier this year. Primarily because those parcels are located on the main corridors in Cape Carteret, Taylor Notion Road, 5824, they felt that they were suitable. And part of their recommendation was that if those property owners request rezoning to this R10M district, that they would consider that, and that hopefully the Board of Commissioners would consider that going forward. All of the others, for various reasons, at this time, they didn't feel like they were suitable. That certainly doesn't preclude someone from coming in and requesting a rezoning. Any property owner has the ability to request rezoning of their property to any zoning district going forward. But I want the public and I want the board to know that the planning board undertook a very thoughtful process to look at these parcels. But if this ordinance is approved tonight, it won't apply to any parcels other than the 2 that are already zoned R10M. The only way it would apply to other parcels is if those property owners come to the planning board and ultimately to the Board of Commissioners for a rezoning. And one would presume they may do that or they may not do that in the future. Like I said, that's a completely separate process, public notice requirements, signage, public hearings, and so forth. So that's what could potentially come next, but that's not a given. Ultimately, the planning board and the Board of Commissioners may say, yeah, that makes total sense. We should rezone that property. Or you may say, nah, we really don't think that's appropriate, and you wouldn't approve that rezoning. The key thing I want people to understand is that any rezoning process, just like any ordinance amendment that you're considering tonight, that's a legislative process. That is very inclusive with public input, and there are really no restrictions on that public input. Any constituent can talk to any of you at any time about any issue, and we're not constrained by some of the legal constraints on the special use permit process. So I guess it's in the eye of the beholder. In my opinion, I think that's a better process for our community to use to make these decisions going forward. I think that the ordinance standards specified, as we've indicated here, it also provides more certainty. It provides more certainty for the property owner, provides more certainty for the developer, more certainty for the neighbor, for the members of the public, as well as more certainty for you and the planning board members. So that's a very deliberate approach to bring these things back into the legislative realm as opposed to the quasi-judicial realm that special use permits typically require. With that, I think those are the key points that I wanted to get across to the board and to the public. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'm sure the town attorney is happy to answer any questions you may have as well. And I look forward to your discussion about this issue.
May you know, or 5.5 units per acre. It's an awfully specific number. How did we?
So that is the current standard in our UDO, and my understanding is that standard's been in place for many, many years. So we did not adjust that standard at all. Certainly, I don't know where the town came up with that standard initially. That's certainly within the purview of this board to amend in any way that you think is helpful, but it's a long-standing provision.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
all right, all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Next up is a resolution authorizing engineering services contract with Tidewater Associates Incorporated for Sutton Drive.
Okay. No, I apologize.
Did I mess up?
I missed the vote.
Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you. I apologize.
Thought I messed up.
Yeah, no.
Good, it's not me this time, yay. All right, so anyway, the resolution authorizing engineering services contract with Tidewater Associates Incorporated for the Sutton Drive stormwater improvements.
Yeah, really happy to be presenting this for your consideration tonight. At the meeting in September, you saw the same graphic, and the board approved a resolution authorizing the manager and the attorney to secure a stormwater easement through the golf course behind Sutton Drive. I'm happy to be here tonight to present the next step in the process for your consideration. It is a contract with Tidewater Associates. They're an engineering firm based in Cedar Point. The contract is for $33,100. It is for design, permitting, bid solicitation, and construction administration services to design improvements to the drainage system serving the Sutton Drive, Sutton Place area. As you know, the town was fortunate to receive grant funding from a couple of different sources. In addition to our American Rescue Plan Act funds, we have a total of about $846,000 that the board has previously appropriated for stormwater improvements. Those funds would be used to cover the cost of this contract with Tidewater Associates. And if the board approves the contract, I would expect that Tidewater would begin work very soon on designing improvements to the stormwater system there. You probably are aware that it's a combination of open ditches and existing pipes in that area. There's probably multiple issues that have led to some of the flooding problems in the past, whether the pipes are undersized, whether certain areas may be failing, or perhaps are not oriented in a way that moves the water as efficiently and quickly out of that area as we would like. Tidewater would essentially review the entire situation out there. And this is a survey that shows the drainage basin in the Sutton Drive area. They would be reviewing the existing system, reviewing the current development, reviewing the existing drainage basin, and making recommendations and designing improvements. And that may involve replacing existing pipes. It may be enlarging those pipes. Currently, it's a 15-inch pipe. It's overwhelmed in the most significant rainfall events that we have here. It will also likely involve some maybe some new nature-based strategies, some infiltration basins, some retention basins, some improvements to existing ditches that feed into this pipe, possibly the establishment of some new ditches. So really, I think all of the solutions are on the table, and the goal is simply to drain that area appropriately and quickly before it causes any problems for the neighborhood. Tidewater is a reputable firm, do a lot of work in our area, come with good references and good experience in this field. So the recommendation for you tonight is to approve the resolution authorizing the manager to execute a contract with Tidewater. If that happens, I hope that I will return to you sometime in early 2023 with their recommended solution and authorization to solicit bids. And then I hope we'll bring you a construction contract sometime perhaps this spring so that we can resolve the concerns in that neighborhood. As you know, the board identified 12 locations prior to my arrival that you wanted the staff to focus on. This is one of those locations. 7 to 8 of those locations are included in the various grants that we've been awarded. My approach, and this is the first step, is to start tackling each of these locations one by one. And Sutton Drive has been the area that I've perceived to be the highest priority for the town. And I'm anxious to hopefully resolve the concerns in that neighborhood and not have some of the problems that folks have experienced in the past. As I alluded to in the written materials, I'm hoping to come back to you at the next meeting, perhaps the December meeting, with similar recommendations for the Arden Oaks neighborhood and also the Bogue Sound Drive neighborhood. I'm awaiting proposals from engineering firms for those locations and trying to get things rolling and hopefully complete some of this work. The specific funding source for this contract would come from the Resilient Coastal Communities Program grant. We were awarded that earlier this summer. We have a deadline of February 1st to expend those funds, and I think we're on target to do that if the board chooses to proceed at this time. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have and look forward to resolving the concerns.
I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to adopt this resolution, entering into the contract with Tidewater, just as you've stated here in this memo. I think this is.
I'll second. All right. All in favor? Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Stop it.
Thank you.
And let's just keep the ball rolling, Frank. Go ahead and give us your report.
I just hit on a couple of the more significant items. One that's not written, just want to remind everybody that we will recognize or observe Halloween on Monday, October 31st, trick-or-treating from 5:30 to 8:30 that night. And we'll certainly publicize that accordingly and make sure we have public safety personnel available and deployed. So, several things coming down the pike. I mentioned the Arden Oaks and the Bogue Sound Drive design work. A few of the other things that I mentioned in here, had a no parking zone request on Manatee Street that I very likely will bring back to you at your meeting in November for your consideration. We've also got some questions about the town's ordinance regarding the discharge of firearms and other weapons, and I'll seek to clarify that and bring that back to the board probably at the November meeting, perhaps December. Really pleased with the work that Thomas Simpson Construction did to improve the bicycle path segment on Taylor and Ocean Road between Arden Oaks and the library. Did a very good job on the project. Where I would say we're 98% complete right now. Public Works will go out and improve the drainage swale in that area as their workload permits, but pleased to get that fixed and looking much better and hopefully serving the citizens for a long time. The boat ramp passes, we're up to 295 right now. We started at 285. The board authorized another 10. Since then, we've had additional requests. And so if the board is interested in slightly increasing that number, please let me know. Otherwise, we're going to hold firm to the 295. So please let me know your thoughts on that, and I'd be happy to bring that back to you. Appreciate the hard work of Ryan Hutchinson and his staff. They completed the fall vegetative debris collection last week. Got a little bit sidetracked because of some pest named Ian, but those guys did a great job in getting the town cleaned up and also dealing with some of the prep work with Ian. We collected debris from a total of 427 collection points in the town, 29 loads that they took to Sunland. Took them about 9 days of work, so appreciate the effort that they put forth. The town clerk and I are currently in the process of reviewing applications for the police chief position. We had a total of 20 applications, and we're in the process of going through them now, and we will schedule interviews with the top candidates sometime very soon. We're very close to filling a vacancy in the police department for an entry-level police officer position. I hope I'll be able to introduce that new officer to you at some point here in the not too distant future. And then other than the chief position, that would get us to full staffing. Several other things included in here. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about any of these items or anything else that's on your mind. So.
Any questions for Frank?
Yeah, Frank, I shared this with you in private, but I want to share it in public. I'm concerned about the underwash at the dilapidated bulkhead on the newly purchased ferry landing park. Once your waterfront property is gone, you cannot go out at the water and put a stake there and say, that's where my property line used to be, and put a bulkhead and backfill. I'm just concerned that the sand is going to wash in the canal there and possibly cause problems for the neighborhood boat ramp over there. And I think we're just kicking the can down the road and finishing the bulkhead. I would like to know how much it would cost to finish the bulkhead and bring it before the board for an up or down vote on finishing that. I think the prices are going up all the time on the price of bulkhead. And I think it'd be, one of our biggest jobs is protecting the assets of the citizens. And I think we're kicking the can down the road by procrastinating on that one. So if you could maybe put it on the agenda for December or something, or I don't think we can put out an RFP without the board vote. Is that correct, Brett? Maybe?
Quotes for it.
Yeah. Quotes, okay, and get quotes and come before the board, say in December, and let the board, just put it to the board up or down, where they want to proceed with it or not.
I'd be happy to do that. The previous section that was done was about 100 feet, and it cost $230 per linear foot, so it's $23,000. I think we've probably got to do another 250 to 300 feet out there. So if the previous price is still close, you're probably looking at somewhere in the 60, 70, maybe $75,000 range. But we can absolutely get some current quotes from you. I suspect it's gone up since that happened, and bring that back to you along with some potential funding sources. We don't have money in the current budget for it, but you certainly have fund balance you could consider, or you could consider it as part of next year's budget process.
Yeah, I mean, kind of see if you can identify some funding for it without obtaining a grant. So we don't want to open it up to the entire world. If we accept a grant, I think we have to do that. But so far we paid it out of our own coffers. We paid for the property. Yeah, the last thing we need to do is lose our waterfront property. It's precious. Go down the end of Manatee Street, you see washing away. The end of Easy Street's already gone. I mean, it's to protect those assets. Thank you.
Any more questions, Frank? If not, then we'll let you, commissioners, we'll just keep going, Steve. We'll let you start us off with the commissioner reports.
Yeah, I want to commend the planning board and Frank for taking up the issue with the rezoning of the R10M. I think it was a good effort by the town manager and the planning board. And remind everybody that early voting starts, I think it's October the 20th. Remind everybody to cast their votes. A very important election.
Charlie? Jeff?
Nothing to report right now.
I'll just say that, you know, Frank, we've talked about this. I do support increasing boat ramp passes for citizens. I don't know if you're going to bring that back to us in November, but I'm already, you know, in favor of that. Looking at what we did this year and how it affected, you know, how the boat ramp looked on major holidays and stuff. So, and we've talked about that. I did see the numbers on the debris pickup. Ryan, I thought that was great. I mean, you guys did a lot for really not a whole lot of work, I'll just say. I mean, I know you guys worked hard. It's not to diminish what you did, but I didn't realize it was, I mean, it's very cost effective when you look at it. So I think that's a good service that the town provides. And I thought that was very good. I too want to commend the planning board. You know, I attended all the planning board meetings just to sort of observe this process, those that I could since June when all this came about. And I was very impressed with the process. You know, Frank, you know, sort of steering the ship, and even the planning board. I mean, they even changed the seating arrangement so that they could better collaborate and work together. So I thought that was good. I think that's a lot of good things going on in the town. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have.
All right. Well, I got a couple things. One is coming up on October 29th this month. If you've never been to our fire rescue station, they're going to have an open house. That's Saturday, October 29th from 12 to 4. You can go check out all facilities, all the equipment and the apertures that they have over there. They'll have some food real available, so a free meal, I guess you can head over and get some free stuff as well. And then we've got our Fall Festival coming up on November 5th. Now that morning is a veterans parade in Morehead, so I'd like to encourage all the veterans here in our town to go represent, you know, at that parade early and then come on down for our Fall Festival. And we've got some great sponsors this year. I just want to name them off because they're giving us great value, bang for our buck for our Fall Festival. I don't think we're having to spend hardly any money at all, thanks to these sponsors who are Emerald Isle Realty, Southwell Surf Shop, the Civic Federal Credit Union, Coastline Homes, Kim Hudson Plumbing, Sherwood Real Estate, and the Crystal Coast. Did I miss anybody? Tourism Board? Southwell Surf Shop. Turnkey Home, yes. So I'd like to personally thank all of them for helping to sponsor our Fall Festival. That hopefully we'll have some good weather and everybody come on out and enjoy it. Very family friendly. We got some awesome bands that are going to be playing, some great music. We'll have some great fall weather coming up with that. And also speaking of the Western Carteret Fire Rescue, I'm on that board. We got our meeting Wednesday night. I always encourage the public, if you want to come and see where your tax dollar goes for your fire and rescue. It's always good to keep up with that. And something I wasn't sure about, and I was asking Frank, is if the board was getting any of those information from them as far as the calls and stuff. So I'm going to make sure you guys, if you're not getting it now, that you do start getting that. It's really eye-opening information to see where we're calling. I know we've had that issue with our own police departments, where our guys go as far as trying to help, you know, our neighbors and stuff. But we have the same issue with our fire and rescue, where we're helping a lot of people out with some issues we may have to look at in the future. Naturally, everybody wanting to move down here now and be our neighbors. We've got some discussions to have about how we're going to deal with all this influx of people. it will affect us. It will affect our town, and it will affect the fire and rescue, schools, everything else of that nature. With that, thank you once again to our awesome staff, Frank, and our Public Works and our staff here at Town Hall. I've had nothing but great feedback as far as especially this past month with everything we've been doing. We were very lucky with Hurricane Ian. I'd like to send out my heartfelt condolences to those who lost their families in Florida. They really got hammered. Anything we can do to help our neighbors down in Florida, we should all pull together. It could have been us. And, you know, we've been through them, and you know, I'm sure to find some food with a knock on. Hopefully we're going to be out of it for this year. But we're very fortunate. God has blessed us. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for being here. Love seeing people out in the audience. It's your town.
Yeah.
Hurricane got me an extra cruise today.
Oh, yeah?
We went out to Charleston on Monday. We're supposed to come